Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you may be in the world. Welcome to Gift of Healing TV. I'm Sara Jane. Now, my guest this evening is Jessica Taylor. Only for the last half hour, we've been having great difficulty getting her into the room for some reason. And bearing in mind that she's in Canada and I'm in the UK, we're having to try and do this via email and it's not working. So I'm not sure whether we're actually going to get Jessica. But as I know we've got people watching this live right now, I am going to start by introducing her using her bio with the absolute hope that she gets to join us, that whatever glitch is going on within her computer gets resolved. But while we're waiting, hopefully that she will join us. Let me just read her bio for you so that we can then get on with the program. And I am going to say when Jessica joins us. The notion that strength and dexterity is not about how much you can withstand, but how often you can stand up after finding yourself on the ground. That has been the motto of Jessica's life, and she owes her accomplishments to it, despite all that she has ever been through. Born in Ireland, Jessica tasted fame early when she became a professional child actor and an award-winning step dancer. In the 50s, while nursing at an institution in Surrey, England, she tended to two royal sisters, Catherine and Nerissa, who were portrayed in the film The Crown. After immigrating to Canada with her husband and two young daughters, Jessica successfully owned a Merle Norman cosmetic studio in Ontario. However, the glory did not matter when she became a survivor of a life-threatening head injury, which inspired her to initiate a brain injury awareness campaign in 1992. Apart from appearing on several radio and TV shows, such as Hidden Heroes Canada and Nationwide Ireland, her campaign has been honoured by several celebrities, such as Mary Robinson, a former president of Ireland, and Sarah Ferguson. Due to having lost all knowledge of general education, in order to educate herself after her life-threatening injury, Jessica studied the science of the supernatural, known as theology, at the Vatican. As a result of her findings, she now shares them in a book entitled A Spiritual Awakening in Search of Hidden Jewels.
Oh, there you are.
Hello. Oh, I am so pleased to see you. I've just read your bio.
I know what was happening because there was a yes and a no beside. If you can hear yourself, if you can get the sound that was supposed to come to me, get some sound. And of course, I was clicking no. That's
yeah. And no won't get you in, but you're in. That's the most important thing.
Oh, I know. Better late than never.
And well, welcome. And it's lovely to have you here. And the people that are already watching have been really patient, waiting for you to be able to be. So Jessica, thank you so much for joining us. It's a real pleasure. And if you need to take a deep breath, because I know how stressful technology can be, please feel free to do so.
Well, tell me about an technology. I can write well and I can, read and write and that, but technology, no way. I can't work computer or anything else. Somebody else has to do that for me.
And you've done brilliantly. You've done brilliantly. So I've just, as I said, read your bio, which is something I always do with guests anyway. Now, the program, ladies and gentlemen, is helping people understand their connection with others, nature, and the universe. So, Jessica, please, firstly, thank you for joining us. I apologize that you've had such a horrendous time of trying to get in, but at least you're here. Share a little about why this particular topic is of importance to you.
Well, I've had 2 journeys in my life. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I've had 2 journeys in my life. My first one, being born into a show business family in Ireland and becoming a professional child actor and going on getting married and having 2 beautiful daughters, moving to Canada. And then at the age of 31, the tragedy happened. I had a beautiful Merle Norman cosmetic studio in Toronto, and not long after we emigrated. And I was out with the business representative one night, one evening, and I'd only just trained a couple of staff members that I was able to leave them for a minute. And unfortunately, the guy that was with me opened a door that was in the side alleyway into their hairdressing business. And there was no light on. It's kind of a long story, but it's in my book, From Tragedy to Triumph. I fell down 15 steps and my head got struck against a steel-plated door. So, but you know that what saved my life was a wig. I should have called my book The Wig That Saved My Life, to be honest, because I was open from 10 in the morning till 10 at night, and I just couldn't go to a hairdresser. I didn't have time. I was full-time in my studio. So as I was selling wigs, I wore a wig, curly wig. And I still had a massive cut from here to here on the right side of my head, which led to extensive brain injury. But then again, it's a long story and it's all in my book, my memoir, but there was no CAT scan or MRI or anything like that in all those years, 50-something years ago in Toronto Hospital. So I was just let out into the world with undetected brain injury. My husband had no idea what was wrong with me, just thought I was gone nuts. And, strange things started happening to me. I'd be sitting on a chair and people are talking to me, and I'd have to put my hands down on the seat either side of me to hold myself down. It was like I was swirling up into the cosmos somewhere or another. These weird things happening to me, I just didn't understand what was going on. And like things like I couldn't understand the lights across the street. I'd have to go behind people and follow them. The cooker, somebody would have to put left, right, front, back on the cooker for me. And the house nearly got burnt down a couple of times because I'd forget to do things. But anyway, to get away from that side of my journey, what happened was, because my memory was wiped clean, I had to do something to survive, especially survive suicide, which an awful lot of brain injured people have to go through. So I decided, well, that's it. I will go to the library and something to do. I couldn't work. There's no way I could work again. I tried various jobs and failed. So I went to the library and I said to the library, my friend told me to go to the research room and do some studying because I've had a brain injury and I don't know anything. And then she said, what do you want to study there? And I said, God. And that I was an agnostic. Where did this word come from? It's like, the universe sends us messages. our guides and that, and we just follow through and unconditionally, and just don't, half the time don't know what we're doing. But anyway, long story short, I went to the research room and started just studying about life in general. What was life all about? And there were Vatican encyclopedias. You could say that they had my name on them, because they were literally falling out into my hands. And what I learned there compared to what people are taught in general was totally controversial, totally controversial. I learned that this is where my big journey began, I would say. I was in the Isle of Wight, trying to find myself. I went everywhere trying to find who am I, And then if somebody directed me to the Isle of Wight, because there's a lot of spiritualists there, because of the fact that Queen Victoria had a house there and used to do table lifting and all of that, client, she always did that kind of thing, that most of the people in the Isle of Wight followed up on her doing that, And they thought, well, if the Queen does it, we can do it, So then I started, the first two words that I read were Satan and Satan and what's the other word they use for the devil? Devil and Satan. Yeah. Devil and Satan. And they weren't, that's not what they were called in the Vatican literature. They were enemy and slanderer. Really saying that, and to me, that I fell in love with that Jesus that I was writing about or reading about. I just totally fell in love with him, because I wasn't reading Orthodox books. I was reading books like the Essene scriptures and Gnostic scriptures and ancient scrolls, about him and his life. Again, they're contradictory to what people are taught. So that started the whole experience in the library, and I went from there, to reading book after book after book, hundreds of books, and interviewing people. Even a priest. Then I went on to Ireland, and I was really, really fortunate to have made great friends with a 90-year-old retired canon of the Roman Catholic Church. And I had been brought up a Protestant, which you don't go into somebody's house in Ireland as a Protestant and start preaching the gospel to them, And we became great friends, Canon Keane. He was just lovely. What he shared with me is in my book, A Spiritual Awakening, which you've seen. Yeah. That's my lovely cover. I love that cover.
Yes.
What he shared with me is in that book. Secrets that he was taught not allowed to give to the public, general public. And one of them was the fact that when Jesus asked his pupils, his disciples, they're his pupils, who they thought he actually was, we were led to believe somebody called Peter answered. But according to the canon, it was somebody called Simon Bar Jonah, son of Jonah. Simon Bar Jonah. And how that got changed, then it just is mind-boggling. And again, that's in my book. He explained so much to me. It was just phenomenal, to be honest. It was really an amazing experience. And so I went on then to studying. He shared the Vulgate Bible with me, which people weren't allowed to read only the priests were allowed to read the Vulgate Bible. But he was kind enough to let me go and photocopy a lot of the pages. And I use that for my research as well. And an awful lot of quotes are in my book from the Vulgate Bible. And I was just astounded when I talk to people. Have you ever heard of the Vulgate Bible? No, never heard of it. Have you ever heard of Ecclesiasticus, the chapter, 52 chapters? No, nobody heard of it, because they were removed from the Bible. So in modern Bibles, we don't have what's called Ecclesiasticus. And, reincarnation is in there. There's no doubt about it. But my conclusion then came from all of my experience that God, the only way I could see God, see what some God could be. The God of the church is never been explained to people properly. By saying God is love, that doesn't give any description whatsoever. And people think it's some fella out there in the sky somewhere in the universe. But my conclusion was that God is first of all, the universe is alive. So consciousness is in all life on the planet. Like every animal, every insect, even to the smallest insect, there's consciousness there without any doubt. So then I just came to the conclusion that, wait a minute now, if the universe is alive, there's a form of consciousness, an energy, a beautiful energy. And that's what they're calling God without knowing it. That's the true meaning. So I'm calling in the book God is consciousness. So I say God consciousness. And then, that consciousness is like I said, birds, how do they know how to fly thousands of miles and not get lost? How do dolphins talk? All of these things I studied in the world in terms of frequency and vibration and frequency. I wrote a lot about that, what goes on the planet regarding vibration and frequency. And then I studied words, like positive and negative words, and what they do to people. And like the word kill is like a negative, awful word we should never use. But we should use more words like love, positive words. And then I went on to studying people like Plato, Galileo, and all of these great thinkers from Greece. And I found the majority of them believed in reincarnation and studied in the East, whereas we were told that Jesus went out into the jungle somewhere for all those missing years. But I discovered he was in the East. There's no doubt he was in the East. Even the Indian government say that they have enough physical evidence that he was there. And there's one inscription on a rock that he was there in the year 45 AD. So this is after what I call so-called crucifixion. I believe he was crucified, but he didn't die. He just got out of his body, with his mind power, because he had tremendous power. And then went on back to India again for those remaining years. And there's a grave about him in Kashmir, India, that people say without any doubt that's where Jesus is lying, in that grave in Kashmir. And that wouldn't surprise me in the least, because I thought, why would he leave there again and go back to where he could be? They try and kill him again. you know. But then after studying that priest, what the priest gave me, I came across a book called A Catholic Priest Meets Sai Baba. So then that introduced me to a holy man in India called Sai Baba. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. Yeah.
Yes.
And who does tremendous, beautiful work. Well, he's passed now, but he's supposed to come back in a third incarnation. And he has a school program where it's right. It teaches children truth, peace, love, right conduct, and non-violence. And it's gone around the world, and there was praise for that program in Buckingham Palace. So that was a big study about Sai Baba. I've written 2 chapters about him and his life. But Mario, who wrote the book, Marzellini, A Catholic Priest with Sai Baba, was an absolutely wonderful, wonderful man. He was a priest at the Vatican, of all places. But for 12 years, he went to India to study Baba and hear him speak and talk to him personally. And he established that he said exactly what Jesus was saying. Like they were identical people, you know? And of course, then the book, they didn't like the book at the Vatican. They excommunicated him, that lovely priest. He went to live in Italy, where I think he was born. And then I studied. When I was studying about reincarnation, I came across a Roman emperor called Justinian, who wrote curses stopping his people from believing that Jesus was any more than just an ordinary man, and preventing people from believing reincarnation. And that was unbelievable. And then I found that people like Benjamin Franklin, Pythagoras, Plato, Isaac Newton, Carl Jung, Albert Schweitzer, poets Milton, Wordsworth, Mansfield, and Tennyson, Kipling, Dickens, and Emerson all believed in reincarnation. Now, these are people with a good brain in their head. For heaven's sake, would they believe in something like that? You know, of course they would. And then in the Bible, I studied St. Paul actually spoke about women receiving their dead raised to life again. And there's a lot in the Bible, if you really read it properly, to get through, but I have to go to the Vulgate, not the modern Bibles. Because the Vulgate Bible was 400 AD. And then I read about a beautiful bishop called Bishop Origen. I thought if I was ever there at that time of life, I would fall in love with the man. He wrote, every soul comes into the world strengthened by the victories or weakened by the defeats of its previous life. And the dead may be converted and become as... Well, Jesus actually said that Jesus said that we must be converted and become as little children again. And then Luke said, thou hast been born through them and make a return to them as they have done thee. So, like, there's evidence all over the place in that Vulgate Bible, without any doubt. And people just need to study. You know, they need to study. Then another thing I found was through all my 20 years of study, by the way, and I didn't realize what I was doing. I was healing some of the dead brain cells. Well, not the dead ones. I think I was waking up dormant neurons in my brain. That's what was happening because of the intensity, frequency, and duration of what I was learning. It was like non-stop for 20 years. And that was stimulating my brain. There's no doubt about it. So I say that I've given talks at conferences and that for brain injury. And I just tell people, for heaven's sake, study something, no matter what it is, just study sex if you want, study anything and keep writing and writing and writing, and you've got to, we forget that we have all this emphasis is placed on our physical exercise all the time. What about brain exercise? That's even, to me, more important. We have to exercise the brain, and that's it. Then I came across a subject matter called theurgy, Theurgy, something else nobody has ever heard of. And in the old days, there were people called theurgists. Who were they? Hands-on healers, psychics, mediums, all of these kind of people. And I thought, well, okay, what is theurgy? And then through research, I established that earlier on, people used theology talking about God, but then theurgy acting on the forces of that energy. So they got into I believe what they do is they get into the higher state of consciousness. So, some, like an ant will be at one state of consciousness, a goat on another, a dolphin on a higher one, humans on a higher one. And then people like that can go to the very highest form of energy of consciousness. They're all tapping into energy, and that's it. And that's how it happened. And for me, writing a spiritual awakening, I had to have gone up there somewhere. Because, to be honest, when I read the whole book, I thought, who the hell wrote that? I didn't think I was capable on my own. And I know I had help. I did. I had help. There's no doubt about it. Because now people are saying that they're reading it 2 or 3 times to even grasp what I've said, because I have so many subject matters in it and, so much evidence of this, that, and everything else. And I know it's controversial, but that's okay. I'm not knocking the church or anything else. People want to go to mass or go to whatever. That's their prerogative. And if they enjoy it, good. I'm glad. People, because Jesus did say, where people are gathered together to it, I will be there, So this is beautiful. But, the controversial aspect of it is the truth is what I found. I found the truth. Hidden, that's why I call it hidden jewels in the book. I call this the truth. And I had a book launch actually not long ago, because this book has not been out very long. And I had everybody in stitches, because when I was talking about the book being controversial, I said, well, if you see the Pope running down the street after Jessica one day, you know what's going on. Yeah, highly unlikely. Yeah. But it's just been an amazing experience, totally. And I would love to actually I'm 86 now. So I'm doing all of this so late in life. But I'm not a person to just sit at home and have coffee and talk to the neighbor. I have to be active mentally, So I'm marketing like crazy. That's no easy job for me, again, because my memory is, as you can tell from the way I talk, my memory is shattered. It's not good at all. And ever since the head injury 50 something years ago, then I had, unfortunately, a little leak in one of my veins in my head as well. And that put me back for months and months and months. And it didn't help my memory whatsoever. But, I plod on, and that's it. I would love to be able to speak. Well, I have spoken on a one-to-one with some people. One was a university student, and she said, Jessica, what you've told me in 20 minutes, it took like all my years of university to grasp. So, and another young girl came and said something similar. I just love talking on a one-to-one with people. And so that's why I've set up a blog so that people can get in touch with me and just ask questions. Anybody who wants to know anything about my book when they're reading it, and if they're confused about anything, I can talk one-to-one with them. And I like to also have people understand their connection with the universe, their connection with each other, their connection with nature, and the power of being positive as opposed to negative.
Yeah.
And I actually devised a lot of people, like I think you wrote to me about it, a little exercise that I do out in the grass. I just stand on the grass barefoot, and I forget I'm in Parksville, British Columbia. I see myself literally standing on the planet, because that's where you're standing when you go outside, or even if you're sitting in your room, whatever, you're on the edge of the planet Earth. And so metaphysically, then your soul self gets huge, becomes enormous. Like, you're seeing everything as one. Like Edgar Mitchell, the astronaut, he started noetic science through the fact that when he was out in space, he saw everything as one. The stars, people, Earth, planet, everything as one. And of course, that's the First Nation explanation about life as well, which is beautiful. They see everyone as one, everything, the ocean, the planets, everything is one, nature. And that's beautiful, philosophy for people to know. And really just rising above anger, jealousy, greed, envy, all of the negatives. That's what I tell them. That's what they say. Well, what do I do? What do I do? The people I've spoken to. And that's what I've said. Just rise above all of that. Don't have any anger for anyone, no negativity, no whatever. Rise above all of that and just be a good soul. But also understand that you are a soul using a physical body for your, what they say in Canada, your comeuppance. And yeah, can you hear me okay? Because I'm losing my sound.
No, I can hear you perfectly. I can hear you perfectly. Oh. And it's fascinating, Jessica. It really is. Just a couple of quick comments I'd like to put in. You talked about it's the soul and had the vastness. And that's just it. That's an experience I remember sort of being aware of, is that our soul is so much bigger than our physical body.
Huge.
And we
huge.
And we don't huge. We don't have to grow our body to try and sort of encompass our soul, because we can't. And we are one planet. I see our beautiful planet as a living entity. I mean, within sort of, is it Greek mythology, Gaia, Mother Earth, a living being. And I always refer to Gaia, or I love Pachamama. I love that as well. It's very much a matter of, and it's trusting and believing that we are connected to everything. And as for the negativity, my youngest sister's done quite a lot of research, and apparently within our dictionaries there are 6,000 plus negative words to 2,000 positive words. That is why we have so much difficulty in expressing ourselves from a positive perspective, rather than, because we go into the not and negative, but we did, yes, it is
and
trying.
This should be taught at schools. People should be taught at schools that they're spiritual people. And given, like, I'd love to get my book into libraries and universities if I can, but I work alone, so it's no joke, And I might get somebody. I might get somebody to help with marketing.
But I also think, yes, there's that aspect, the very human aspect of that. But I'm a great believer in sort of the universe wishes us to get this information out there. It's why we have the ability of this technology at this time, why we have books, it's there. It's for us all. And if somebody listens to this program and it's just like, oh, we can do that. It's just, we never know the lives we are touching by putting ourselves out there. And you are doing amazingly, sort of considering what you've had happen to you. But I don't know your understanding of it. But because I went through trauma as a child, but it wasn't brain trauma. But then how many people have we got these days that have got neurodiverse issues, and that we're wired differently? So you've been maybe rewired so that you've done what you've done because this is what you were here to do in this lifetime.
Yes.
And helping people to realize that there is more to life. I remember reading the Da Vinci Code, Dan Brown. And
incredible.
When in there, it talked about Jesus and Mary Magdalene being married. Oh, I felt that in the core of my being, the truth of that. And I was raised a Catholic. I felt that in the core of my being. There were things I read in Neil Donald Walsh's book, Conversations with God, that again caught me right in the core of my being as truth. If you're reading something and something really touches you, be open to whether you like the idea of it being truth or not. It doesn't matter. You're touching, for me, our heart is our connection to our soul. And it's touching that. If it's something that absolutely speaks to you, then it's a truth for you. It doesn't have to be a truth for everybody else. As you were saying, if people choose to speak, to believe in different religions, that is their choice. But more and more people, and with thanks to people like you, are opening up. So because I know we started late, so I have no problems with running over a little bit on this. Have you got any thoughts, any suggestions of how people can open up to that connection? I know you talked about feet on the earth and earthing, absolutely grounding, really amazing. Meditation's another great way, just opening up to the mind. But have you got any thoughts about how people can open to that connection with others, with nature, the universe?
Excuse me. Let's see. like I can only explain what I've explained here, you know, what we can do and what we can study. And I'm sure you love Einstein just as much as I do. And what he says is it's important. The important thing is to not stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existing. So study like I did, you know, but I know people wouldn't be able to do it for 20 years. But to physically explain, I guess my exercise, standing on the grass and knowing you're on planet Earth and seeing it, and then the fact that metaphysically you expand your mind, which is not in the brain, it's outside, it's another energy, connected with that universal consciousness, you know, just as the soul is connected with that universal consciousness, because it's all energy. And have them know that they can tap in. They can tap into their soul energy that way. But what I'm hoping for is that reading my book is going to make a change, because the readers already have gone back to me saying they're not only reading it several times, they're saying it's giving them a complete new perspective on life in general. And so that's where I need to get that book out. And this isn't like ego talking, because that's gone from me. All of those negatives were erased when I had that injury. I've never had an angry day or a greedy day or any of those things. All those negatives were washed out, wiped out completely. It was like I think I could give a short description of how I did my own start of the book. I said, a life-threatening injury wiped clean my memory. I became a child in an adult body at the age of 31. Or learning how to rebuild my world, a heightened awareness took over my mind, body, and spirit. Spiritually, I found myself on another plane of existence as my mind expanded to new dimensions. And then there's more in how I explored all of the things that I told you. Then I just say at the bottom of the page, the arguments presented in my book lead to a new understanding of the traditional messages of the Bible. I strip away dogmatic thinking on the origin of Christian language, consider the broader meaning of theology in terms of the mind and soul, and reveal many astonishing hidden truths, which I call jewels. I present the reader with overwhelming evidence that there is much more to our history than we have been led to believe. Furthermore, our lost history has enormous implications for our spiritual journey. You know, I think I've said enough, to be honest, in my book, that people seem to be understanding what's what I'm suggesting.
No, what wonderful. So the book's called A Spiritual Awakening.
Yeah, in search of hidden jewels.
And people will find that on your website?
Yeah, they can. It's on Amazon worldwide now, thank goodness. But okay. I've got to get back to Amazon because my daughter looked up the price the other day, and Amazon had it up to like $36 something. I don't want that. I want that book to sell at $20, not $36. So now I've got to get in touch with them and say, why are you doing this? Will you please put it down? This will be the second time to ask them to do that. And they did put it down the first time I got onto them. I don't know why they do that. Have you any idea? I have no clue.
I thought we were the ones that set the price.
We should be. But I've learned that we're not fully in control,
No.
But you do
No.
wonderful work, Sara Jane.
We
You
definitely
wonderful
are.
work.
Oh, we aren't in control.
And there are many of us now doing similar work. Like there are hundreds all over the planet.
Oh, there are.
Look at Deepak Chopra, Eckhart Tolle blows my mind. He is unbelievable, and people can go to his video, go to YouTube and listen to everything he says. It's like he's tapped right into the highest area of consciousness. I'm sure he has, like Edgar Mitchell. He's phenomenal. He really is. He's phenomenal. Eckhart Tolle. I mean, there's more. Oprah as well Oprah has had her shows where she's interviewed people on this subject matter, and they're worth watching. Super Soul Sunday, she called it, Oprah. And people get educated, through those programs as well.
I think it's being open, isn't it? It's being open to what we listen to, what we hear, what we read, but it's also being open to listening to our own intuition, our gut instinct, sort of inspiration. And because it, as they keep saying, everything you're looking for outside is already inside you.
Exactly. Yeah. And inspiration is spiritual, very spiritual, But you see, the trouble is the majority of people have been dictated to the dogmas and everything else, They've been dictated to, so they're programmed. Right from childhood, they're programmed. And that's what's got to change. It's got to change.
I think it is changing. For some, it's not changing for everybody, but it is certainly changing for some. And I think the more, as you said, there are hundreds, thousands of us around the world, sort of all sort of opening up so that we're not being dictated to anymore, that we're finding our own thoughts, our own minds. We're coming to an understanding beyond what we've always been taught. And I think that is wonderful. And the more of us that do, the more of us that can be open to that, then, it's brilliant. Yeah. Deborah's just put, Deborah, is that the link to the book? Oh, you've put private on that. Deborah's been watching, one of the people that's been watching, and she's put a link, but I'm not sure what that's to. But she hasn't made that public for everybody. Okay, link to Amazon for her book, and it's at $26 apparently.
Oh, it's gone down to 26. Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah. So I'm assuming that's for a hard copy.
Yeah, maybe that's what the person looked up that told me, oh my God, your book is selling for, that might be the hard copy.
Yeah.
But most people want the paperback.
Yeah.
Depends on your financial situation.
When I say hard copy, it's paperback. Yeah, I mean paperback rather than hardback, rather than it being an ebook. So, Deborah, thank you. Happy for the. It doesn't have to be sort of private messages, Deborah, unless it's something you don't want people to know about. So, thank you for that. Jessica, it's been a real pleasure. Before we actually close out the program, is there anything that you haven't touched on that you would like to add before we close?
Well, you know what? I'd have to go through the whole book. Literally, I would have to go through the whole book because I've written so much I've things like we're microcosm of the macrocosm is one chapter, soul and spirit is another, early religion, celebrations and rituals are another one, theurgy and practice, the superpower of thought and mind. And I wrote a lot about that lovely Bishop Origen that I fell in love with versus Justinian. Ancient texts as well. I went through massive ancient texts giving the truth about Jesus's life and his work in the East. There is one thing that's very important to me, is the fact that a Russian aristocrat by the name of Nicholas Notovich, he was exploring India on a donkey. He fell off and broke his leg. I don't know if you've heard about him. And some monks in a monastery took care of him. And he came across some script about a man called Issa, I-S-S-A, in India. He had the book translated to English. And I've read some parts of it, and I've given the names of the books where you can get the whole legend. That man was Jesus. There's no doubt. The crucifixion, everything, this man called Issa. So that's a very important story for people to get. If they look up Nicholas Notovich, they'll get, I can't quite remember the name of the book unless I have it in some note somewhere. But it's about Jesus's life in India. And there's no doubt about it. This man called Issa was him. But, why would they call him Jesus? They have to give him their own name, Issa. The birth is identical. His whole life is identical. And the fact that you were talking about Jesus being married to Mary Magdalene, all the old transcripts that I read as well prove that there's no doubt about it. I've even got conversational pieces in my book between one of his pupils and himself, and talking about Mary Magdalene, where he was seen to kiss her on the mouth, all of that kind of thing. Why shouldn't a beautiful man like that get married? Why shouldn't he have a bride? And calling her a whore, to put people off. Because, the church was too powerful way back in history. And even up till not too long ago, or maybe even today, there's still a certain length of power that they have and shouldn't have. But I think this new Pope is more open-minded. That's what I feel about him. I haven't researched him, but from some of the things that he says, I feel he's more open-minded than previous. But then don't forget, in 400, 300, 400, 500 AD, the governments were more in power. The Italian government was the powerhouse. And I think a lot of what the popes, priests, and everything else was dictated by the government, by those early governments.
Oh, it's all about people wanting power, isn't it? And the only way to sort of gain power is to sort of create fear. I
know, which is another negative.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. But it's the negative that creates the power over people. If you were constantly being positive, then you'd have no power over people.
Yeah.
People would have freedom.
The world should be, it's 2024, for heaven's sake, Yeah. It should be in a better, all these wars, prejudice, I have no time for it whatsoever. after my injury, I was befriended by the famous jazz singer Jon Hendricks and his wife Judy of Lambert Hendricks and Ross fame and jazz. And I bet a lot of jazz musicians were just Ronnie Scott, whom I loved at Ronnie Scott's Jazz Club in London. That's all in my first book, the journey from tragedy to triumph. And, we talked about the state of the world. And these people, Ronnie Scott himself took his own life. He couldn't handle it anymore. He was such a spiritualist. He was just a great friend and a spiritualist. And you've probably heard of Ronnie Scott's Jazz Club in Soho, London. People go from all over the world to hear the greatest jazz there. And I was blessed to have been befriended by them. When I went to stay with my mother, I left Canada and went to stay with my mother to get help because I couldn't do anything, cook or sew, nothing. And I was mixing with some friends in a pub. Well, actually, Sarah was another Sarah. She was a distant cousin. And I found her and she befriended me and helped me. And then, of course, that led to some jazz musicians coming in and playing in a place and telling me about Ronnie Scott's. And I knew I was meant to go there as well. And, when I heard the blues, I totally identified. And Illinois Jacquet, one of the greatest jazz saxophone players in the world, befriended me and his lady love. And he said, Jessica, you're beautiful on the inside. He said, you've got to suffer to be beautiful, and you've done it. So I never forget his words, and he's passed now. Actually, 14 people that I wrote about in my memoir have gone the other side. But, people should know we can keep in touch with the spirit as well, because they're in spirit. And we can keep in touch. Some have come to me. Some people who committed suicide have come to me to visit me. And obviously, they were tapping into that was my state as well for many years.
Yeah.
But I got out of that myself by just writing down on a piece of paper everything that I like about what's happening and everything that I hate about what's happening. And I eliminated what's the hate. But it was very hard to get away from the devastation on the planet, because that's what happens when you feel so suicidal. You just think of, oh my God, why are people getting raped? Why are there wars? Why is there prejudice? Why is there all this negative stuff going on our planet? But maybe one day something will happen. There's supposed to be another coming. Satya Sai Baba said he's coming back, and an artist actually drew a picture of what he looked like, and I have it. She said, this is what he's going to look like. Can you see it, or is it too much light here?
No, I can see you, but it needs to come up in front of you. Oh, right. Okay. Yes.
So when he comes back in his third incarnation, at a great time of conflict, then people are going to say that's Jesus. And when Baba was asked, what's the difference? He said, we're one. There's no difference between me and we're just one entity.
Yeah.
On the highest frequency of the planet, the highest vibration, the very highest of consciousness.
Yeah.
And he said we can all
tap into that.
Yes,
it's just up to us.
Consciousness. Yeah. We've got to believe it. There's no good saying, oh, I'm going to try that, and just willy-nilly. You've got to believe it's there and see it. The people are seeing other people's auras now. which is part of all of that, the color, you know, and healing with the Kirlian photography. That's just incredible. The Kirlian family high frequency cameras can actually see our aura color, the same as Mother Earth. That's beautiful aura that's around Mother Earth. Yeah. And I firmly believe that there's other people on other planets as well. I just
what 100%
farther.
What I would, all right, I'm going to say what I believe now. I believe there are many souls here at this time who have their original incarnations were not of this planet; they were of other planets, and they're higher vibrations. And I believe that there are an awful lot of people, and potentially, Jessica, you're actually one of them, that you have had life experiences on other planets, not just here on Earth. And for us to think that we are the only planet that has physical beings like humans, no, I genuinely believe.
And why should we say we're the only one? Why should we do that? What kind of ego is that? You know, we got to rise above ego as well. We've just got to get rid of that ego. And the only way to get rid of the ego is connected with the physical body. To get rid of it is to be into our metaphysical self. And then you don't need ego anymore.
No, we don't. we really don't. Jessica, thank you so very much for sharing with us today. It has been an absolute
speaking to you.
Yeah. And I'm sorry we had problems at the beginning, but we got you. That was the most important thing. It really was. So, folks, I've put Jessica's website up there. Deborah's put the link to her book. So the website is www.jessicataylor.org.
Jessica
if you're watching,
JessicaETaylor.org.
Jessica E. Taylor. My apologies, Jessica E. Taylor.
Yeah, because there's too many Jessica Taylors without the Elizabeth. My second name is Elizabeth, so that helps.
I will make sure that it perfectly, because I've actually put it up there perfectly. I just didn't register the E, so it is up there perfectly. It's in the chat for those of you that are here live. For those of you that are watching this on YouTube, whenever you are watching it, please just click on the link. It'll be below in the information below the video. And if you wish to connect with Jessica, I'm sure she'd be happy for you too. And if you're somebody who can help that book to get out there, please do. Please do.
It's educational. You know, it's educational. That's what's important to me. You know, I mean, I had no intention of writing a book. I only wanted to learn for me. But then what I learned all those years, I thought, oh my God, I can't keep this to myself. I've got to share it. So that was my reason for publishing it. And it cost a lot of money, but you know, I had to do it.
Yeah, you were meant to. You were meant to. That's I'm a great believer in that.
Yeah, I believe we all come into life with a soul purpose. I've written a lot about that in the book as well. We have a soul purpose, and that's it. Two purposes. One is whatever we're generating in terms of work, you know, what we do. And the other one is what the Canadians call comeuppance. If you did something bad in a past life, you must go back, regress it, clear it. You know, I've been regressed to several lives. And one in Africa that was fascinating, where my daughter Deborah was my mother. And it was the Boer War, and my father was a Dutch general. And guess what? I was shot. I was shot. And it was the famous Dr. Ian Stevenson. I was privileged that he regressed me to that life. You know, from the University of Virginia. Is well renowned for his books on reincarnation. And talking to little children and getting them back to their past lives. I've written a lot about that as well in my book, his case histories. Yeah, so that's important as well. Am I rattling on too much here?
I think just purely because of how long people will watch, what you're sharing is fascinating. Sort of, and maybe at some stage we'll get you to come back on. But I think if we wind that up now, and hopefully people will have listened and sort of taken on board so much of what you've said, because it's so resonated with me. It really
Good.
has. Jessica, thank you so very much.
Dear. Thank you.
It's super appreciated. Next week we have a today's conversation, My Life as a Celebrant, Jackie D. And it's not about religion. It's something totally different, but and I've known Jackie for a number of years anyway. So Jessica, thank you. It's been a real pleasure. Folks,
you.
Okay.
Namaste.
And namaste, sweet soul. And we'll see you soon. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.